April 1945. The island of Okinawa, a lush green paradise in the Pacific, had become the final battlefield of the Japanese Empire. It was here, on this small island just 400 miles from Japan's mainland, that the last great battle of World War II would be fought, a battle that would decide the fate of Asia and reveal the terrifying price of victory. The Americans called it Operation Iceberg. To the Japanese, it was the final stand of the samurai. For nearly 4 years, the United States had fought its way across the Pacific, island by island, mile by mile, from Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima. Every step forward was soaked in blood, but Okinawa was different. It wasn't just another island. It was home, Japanese soil, and the men defending it were prepared to die for every inch of ground. The Yusan invasion began on April 1, 1945, Easter Sunday, offshore. The largest naval armada in history assembled, over 1,500 ships, 180,000 soldiers, and an ocean of steel. American battleships rained shells onto the beaches, while waves of landing craft carried Marines and soldiers toward the shore. To their surprise, there was no resistance. The beaches were empty. The silence was eerie. It felt like a trap. And it was. Japanese Commander General Mitsuru Ushijima had learned from past battles. He knew that meeting the Americans head-on would only bring annihilation. Instead, he ordered his men to withdraw into the island's interior, to a series of underground bunkers and caves carved into the hills. There, they waited, hidden in tunnels, connected by miles of trenches and fortified caves. The Japanese army prepared for a battle of attrition, not to win, but to make the Americans pay for every step. When the Americans advanced inland, the trap was sprung. From the ridgelines, Japanese artillery and machine guns opened fire. Entire companies were cut down in seconds. The hills erupted in flame and smoke. The Japanese fought like ghosts, vanishing into tunnels, striking at night, and reappearing in places thought secure. To take a single hill could cost hundreds of lives. To take the island, tens of thousands. One American Marine described it simply. You never saw the enemy, just flashes from the caves, and men dying all around you. The worst of these fortresses was Shuri Line, a network of ridges and bunkers stretching across the island's center. For 2 months, the battle raged there, day and night, rain and blood. Flamethrowers, grenades, and explosives turned the hills into infernos. The air stank of smoke, sulfur, and death. And yet the Japanese would not break. General Ushijima's forces fought with the code of the Bushido, the way of the warrior. To surrender was shame. To die for the emperor was honor. In every cave, the Americans found signs of this devotion. Diaries, flags, and letters soaked in rain and blood. One note read, "To die is to fulfill one's duties. We are the shield of Japan." But Bushido came at a terrible cost. When defeat became inevitable, entire units committed suicide, sometimes by grenade, sometimes by blade. Even civilians, indoctrinated by years of propaganda, threw themselves from cliffs rather than be captured. To the Americans, it was horror. To the Japanese, it was duty. As the fighting dragged into May, Okinawa became a vision of hell. The rain turned battlefields into rivers of mud. Bodies floated in flooded trenches. Shells never stopped. For every foot gained, 100 men died. At sea, Japan unleashed its last weapon, kamikaze pilots. Thousands of young men flew planes packed with explosives, diving straight into American ships. Their cries, "Tennoheka Banzai," echoed across the ocean. In 80 days, over 1,500 kamikaze attacks struck the Allied fleet. 30 ships were sunk. More than 5,000 American sailors were killed. It was the largest suicide assault in history. By June 1945, the end was near. Okinawa was destroyed. The once green hills were blackened craters. The smell of death hung heavy over the island. Inside his headquarters, General Ushijima received his final reports. No reinforcements, no ammunition, no hope. He gathered his staff. In the tradition of the samurai, he bowed deeply to his officers and performed seppuku, ritual suicide. His last words were simple. "We have fought well. Forgive me for dying before you." The final act of the old Japan ended not with victory, but with silence. When the guns finally stopped, Okinawa was a graveyard. More than 12,000 Americans were dead, 36,000 wounded. The Japanese losses were staggering, over 100,000 soldiers and up to 150,000 civilians. 1/3 of the island's entire population had perished. General Simon Buckner, the American commander, summed it up grimly. "Okinawa is the most ghastly and most costly battle of the war." But beyond the carnage, Okinawa revealed something deeper. It showed the Allies what invasion of the Japanese mainland would mean, a nightmare of unimaginable scale. American strategists calculated that if Japan fought to the death as it had on Okinawa, a mainland invasion could cost up to 1 million Allied lives and several million Japanese. That realization changed everything. Just weeks later, the decision was made to drop the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Okinawa had shown the world what fighting Japan to the end would look like, and no one wanted to see it again. In the end, the Battle of Okinawa was not just the last battle of the Pacific War. It was the death of an idea, the idea that honor was worth more than life, that sacrifice could replace strategy, that a nation could survive by dying together. The samurai spirit had reached its final stand, and it fell. Today, the hills of Okinawa are quiet again. The scars of war are hidden beneath trees and grass. Children play where soldiers once died. And in the wind, you can still hear echoes of that ancient code, Bushido, drifting over the cliffs. But the lesson remains clear. In war, courage without reason becomes tragedy. And in Okinawa, both sides paid the price. The Battle of Okinawa, the final storm, the last stand of the samurai, and the moment when the world saw that even victory can look like defeat.